Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm just going to start the meeting by giving you a little bit of kind of how it works. The Planning Commission meetings are quasi-judicial in nature. All decisions of the Commission will be based on competent substantial evidence, including testimony provided in this meeting. Any person who is not an applicant or agent or wishes to speak will need to fill out a speaker's card located on the side table by the door and turn them into the clerk. Each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each item. Please don't participate in applause or cheering or any of that stuff. We try to keep it very civil. And please silence your cell phones. So with that, I'm going to call this meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
David Bell.
Here.
Martin Bowen.
Here.
Greg Sutton.
Here.
Colleen White. Justin Lehrman.
Here.
Emily Stouffer.
Here.
Nicholas Andrews.
Here.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes from July 25th, 2022. Do we have any discussion or do we have a motion?
Motion approved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say no. Thank you, motion passes. Do we have any correspondence, Mr. Copeland?
Yes, there were a number of emails that we received over the last few days that are on the dais for your consideration. They're for the one agenda item that we have.
Thank you, sir. Any old business?
No.
New business, Mr. Copeland?
Yes, we have one item for you guys tonight. This is PC 1922. It is a conditional use application. The property owner is RH2 Properties LLC. The applicant, and I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, is Ida Uffelman. The location is 323 10th Avenue North. The request is for conditional use approval for a proposed drinking establishment located in the commercial limited C1 zoning district pursuant to section 34343D3 of the Jacksonville Beach Land Development Code. The subject property is a unit inside an existing commercial center. The location is that of the previous Really Good Beer Stop and prior to that occupied by Pour Craft Beer. The site has been reviewed several times for compliance with section 34393 for alcohol proximity requirements in the past, and the situation of the surrounding properties is unchanged. The proposed use is that of a retail store that predominantly sells plants, but will also serve beer and wine to patrons of the store. The concept has been deployed in several other cities in North Florida, including something similar in the Riverside neighborhood in Jacksonville. Adjacent uses consist of tenants of the commercial center to the east and west, a mix of residential and commercial uses behind the center itself to the north, and commercial and restaurant uses across 10th Avenue South, to the south, excuse me. The applicant's request should not negatively impact the existing shopping center character or parking. Based on the provided application and analysis stated in the report, the Planning and Development Department is recommending approval of PC 1922.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Do any board members have any ex parte communication to disclose? Thank you. Seeing none. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in and give any presentation you care to? Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. State your name and address for the record.
Ida Uffelman, my home address, 4544 Curl Street, Jacksonville, Florida, 32205.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do. I didn't prepare a presentation. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I needed to, but we're just a plant bar. Potted plants, beer and wine. Should be pretty chill, and what more can you ask for?
So is it fair to say that you agree with the planning?
Oh, absolutely,
department?
yes. Good choice.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. I will now open the public hearing. I have a speaker card from James Sorrell. Join us, Mrs. Sorrell.
Please raise your right hand. State your name and address.
Jim Sorrell, 428 North 10th Avenue, Jacksonville Beach, Florida.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. First of all, I just want to let you know that I'm against having a bar opening in this location. And there's no one more qualified than myself to tell you the actual impact on the neighborhood than me, because I've lived at 428 North, I've owned it since 1976. And I can tell you the impact of what the shopping center has been over the years. As you well know, in that zoning of C1, the intent is that the commercial areas can exist within close proximity of residential areas without creating an adverse effect on the development, or in this particular case, character of such areas. Well, the last occupant, for those that aren't aware, that's one and the same. That wasn't two bars. Fours and Good Beer, that was a name change before he even opened. But anyway, that's one. He also had a very poor, he contributed. He wasn't the only person. We've had, and as I said, I can tell you the history, and I won't bore you with it, but originally Mellow Mushroom was Jim Martin Tires, and Harry's was Learner's Dress Shop. So basically, you can see that there, other establishments have contributed to the pushing of the parking into the residential neighborhood. What we have here, and I have had spoke with several of the tenants in both sides of the shopping centers, is the owners but demand that their tenants do not park in the parking area. So that pushes them into the residential neighborhood right there. Mellow Mushroom and Salt Air both had a problem with parking. They were using the residential neighborhood. Bill Mann made them stop because that's commercial enterprise in a residential neighborhood. And as a result, they have their valet, they rented the lot behind Dairy Queen from the church. And that's where they have their valet parking. So basically what I'm saying is that you have absolutely crazy, impossible parking in that area. And when this establishment opened, Very Good Beer, we had an addition. It was absolutely a great increase in problems. And I don't have to go into details of what alcohol does to the average citizen and in the neighborhood. So yes, it has a very adverse effect in the neighborhood. But the main thing I want to point out to you is the fact that Poor's, and I notice that we still have a couple of the board members that were here when they
Close to time, sir.
pardon me?
You're getting close to time, sir.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Basically, I need to tell you this one thing, though, is the fact that that was a growler package store. That was not approved conditionally as a bar, as your write-up has indicated. And they only have 2 parking spaces, and by their drawing, they've already got seating for 26. So if you want to check on any of my short packs here, then you can go back to the original documents, because they produced documents that will back up everything I tell you that it's a package store, not a bar. But they turned it into a bar because it wasn't conditioned.
Thank you, sir. Does the applicant have anything to add?
I mean, we're gonna be a different business. Half my store, sorry. We're gonna be a different business. Half my store is going to be plants, so that cuts back, a lot of the, I guess you said occupancy issues with parking. And I'm there every day right now, and there's still plenty of parking in the parking lot, so I don't foresee any issues.
Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, okay, a couple. What are your hours gonna be?
So during the week, I think we'll close around 8 or 9. And then on the weekends, I think the latest we'll be open is midnight, but that's kind of pushing it. Other than Murray Hill, so it's a bit of a drive.
And do you consider your establishment a bar or a plant place to buy plants?
I think most of our sales are going to come from plants. Back when I stored the town center previously, and we did wonderful numbers with plants, so I think we'll continue to do that, and just the marijuana will be like an added touch to drink a glass of wine or lottery shopping.
Gotcha. And then how does the parking exactly work in that? Because I know there's a lot of establishments that are they sharing parking in there? And how many spots are there? And are they allotted?
So it's a shopping center, so the parking standard is one space per 250 square feet currently in the code. Obviously, the structure was built a number of years ago. I don't know exactly the total parking count, but the assumption would be it was built to the shopping center standard. So as tenants come and go, the parking is calculated on the center itself, not each tenant that comes in.
It sounds like it's like a sip and shop kind of place, not a full-on like bar. Right? Or is there gonna be a bar in there?
There is a bar. I'm not taking down the bar, but it is going to be more sit and shop experience, workshops, like succulent workshops and that kind of thing.
Okay.
The sip and shop makes sense to me, but who's shopping for plants at 11 p.m. on a weekend, right?
So I like sports, so I have a TV. I wouldn't mind playing, a game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you. Bring the item back to the board for discussion. Do we have discussion or do we have a motion?
Just real quick, I just want to understand the parking spaces a little bit better. So how many spots are there for that area?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Because I do know that Mellow Mushroom does have runoff into they have a sign that says no parking for Mellow Mushroom customers right there. So I'm wondering how many spots do they actually have? I've tried parking there on the weekends. It is a nightmare. I don't have any problems throughout the day. So, how many square feet is this? Is the
1,400.
and then how much seating do you have inside?
I think around like 16 chairs total.
What are your thoughts? Just trying to see what you guys think, or y'all think.
So my question, if this is about parking in residential areas, is parking allowed on that street? Is it legal to park there or not?
Patrons of the commercial area are not permitted to park in the homes where Mr. Sorrell lives. We don't police that, but that is, and I venture to say, and I certainly, we've been down this road a few times with Mr. Sorrell, when it was really bad, when folks were parking directly behind whatever the strip center is there that's by Mellow Mushroom. But I would say that the overwhelming majority of that traffic is from Mellow Mushroom and Salt Life. I'm not overly convinced that this business is going to dramatically have an impact on that. But at the same time, I empathize with the situation. It's been bad, and it's primarily caused by those two businesses.
Through the chair, just to answer the question, there's approximately 12,000 square feet of area to the buildings, these two structures, and that works out to approximately 50 parking spaces, which, based on my very quick count, the parking lot appears to have 50 or very close to 50 parking spaces, so I would say it's on par with what's required.
So I empathize with the parking in residential areas as well. It happens in my neighborhood. It's hard to deal with, but I'm hesitant to not support something if there's already a regulation in place that's supposed to prevent that.
Through the chair. I agree 100% with those comments, and I would say one of the ways we've addressed this before is to ask the applicant if they would be willing to agree to an earlier close time. Because peak time's not 10 o'clock in the morning. Peak time's not 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Peak time's 8 o'clock to midnight, especially when there's alcohol involved. So that might be one of the actions that the applicants could offer that would help us.
I would say that, why would we limit them, not the other restaurants there? Why would we place that restriction on them?
Because it's a plant store.
I mean, it is a plant store, but why can't it also be a place that sells beer?
Well, it can. Absolutely it can. I didn't say it shouldn't sell beer, and I didn't say it shouldn't sell beer up till some time earlier than 12. I think they should. I'd love to have a beer while I'm buying my potocarpus. But if there's an issue with parking at certain times and they have a conditional use request in, we have the ability to look at that and reduce, or at least ask for a reduction and see what that. And then they can.
I don't think either one of the other two properties, either Mr. Popoli can probably comment. I don't think the property where Mellow Mushroom is, nor the property where Salt Life is, would require a conditional use approval to serve alcohol, beer or wine.
No, I would assume that they're both special restaurant licenses.
Right. And that's why we're talking about a conditional use, because we can condition anything we want.
It's not given.
It's not an approved use of that location. It can be approved through conditional use, and we can put additional conditions on whatever we want.
What does the applicant think of that?
I mean, obviously, if that's what it takes to get my business open, I will do it. I would still prefer to stay open until midnight on Fridays and Saturdays. Every other day, I'm totally willing to close at 8 or 9.
Could there be an option to do like a valet service or something? Or she opted to do a valet service and have dedicated spots elsewhere?
You could do that, but it'd be very difficult to enforce. We would go over there daily and see if they were doing valet parking.
Through the chair, there's a provision in the code for off-site parking, but it requires literally like a lease agreement to demonstrate that those parking spaces would be dedicated to this business if they're elsewhere. So they would have to provide that to the planning and development director for approval if they wanted to go that route.
Could we do a trial run, to see how it goes, 6 months?
We could condition it. I would recommend probably longer than that, like a year. We've done that plenty of times, and have the applicant come back then and see if we've had issues, whether it be through JBPD or code violations or whatever the case may be. And if not, then make our decision at that point to further either with conditions or without conditions at that time. So it's not the worst idea.
And if you're looking for options, the other options are to leave the request as stated, and then we'll just vote. So that's another option.
A lot of options. Can I ask my husband? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Feels like Shark Tank.
I had one last question, I guess it would be for Christian, but if she were to go kind of for that valet option, or could it be leased from her landlord since all of the other businesses in that center are pretty much daytime businesses?
That's an interesting question. If they could demonstrate offsetting hours, but if the business is closed, she's free to use that parking area. So I don't know that it would really have a structural impact because the parking's available to her as a tenant. Typically, like downtown, there are places where somebody owns a vacant lot and then someone has a business that doesn't have room for parking. So I suppose it's possible. I just don't know what the actual benefit would be. That makes sense.
Okay, I'd like to leave my request as is, and if any evaluation is needed, obviously my business can be evaluated, but I'd also like to see Melon and Salt Life and just how they're impacting everything versus my plant shop, you know?
Well, I'm hearing that we have two potential options. One, to do something with the time associated with it, to see how it goes, and then
So,
to do, kind of as proposed or with the time.
I have one last question on that concerning what just got brought up about offsetting business hours. Do we have any idea what time the other businesses in that shopping center close?
I do not. We don't track that typically unless it's something like this or there's a condition.
I don't think Salt Life is a particularly late open. Seems like they close relatively early, unlike a bar. I think they're maybe, see if I can look, but I think maybe they are around like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock on weeknights, 10 o'clock, I believe, on Friday, Saturday.
6 p.m. Oh wait, that's retail, isn't it? They are 10 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays.
9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday.
Yep. And then you got Buddha Thai Bistro in there, which is right next to them, open to 10 p.m. And Mellow.
Salt Life and Mellow don't have rights to that parking lot though, right?
Correct. They
Should
don't.
we
Yeah.
just be judging it by the commercial center?
Yeah, it's a separate parcel of property.
If people actually got towed, but people just park there. I know that's. I would make a motion to pass as written with a 12-month revisit, see how it's going.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Roll call vote.
David Dahl,
No.
Greg Sutton,
No.
Justin Lehrman,
Yes.
Emily Stouffer,
Yes.
Mark Murray.
Yes.
There you go. You made it.
May we have the planning department report, please?
We have received a updated application for Adventure Landing. It is in the sufficiency review stage, but I would expect that to be coming either next month or the month after, depending on how soon they get their changes done. And it will be a substantially different project. There was a whole process that went through FEMA for flood zones and reconfigurations. So I would basically consider it a new project when it comes in. It should be substantially different in layout and site design. So
Does substantially different mean different in intensity?
to be determined.
Okay.
And how much time will we have? We'll have 2, 3, 4 weeks to look at the project before we come to the meeting.
I will talk to the director as soon as it's sufficient and we can get it to you.
Because we all work just like you do.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
Is there still a boardwalk or not?
They're still proposing one, but that would end up being a consideration for council, as there would be cost sharing involved. They may still do one on their property, but it may not be a public amenity necessarily. So I think that portion will be up to council because they'll have to pay for it. But that's all I have.
Do we have any further discussion? Then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.